Guys, we're super excited to be here at the opening of Global Entrepreneurship Week. We have events all over the world that are happening. We are grateful to be in that company of innovators that are doing events, and we're excited to have you guys here together. You guys know I usually speak from the investment side to founders, and so we're going to be doing more of that, but also going to be speaking a lot from like a family office perspective. I'm going to be spending more time on the Mainsail side in the next year. Mainsail is our community for family offices. This is where the next generation of family offices that are taking over come to get support. They want to understand AI, blockchain. They want to understand where things are going in health and wellness, or private credit, or real estate, or sports and entertainment. Those kinds of things. Mainsail has done a bunch of events with Formula One the last couple of years. We've done 8 events so far. It's been awesome. Jet hangar events as well. And we have a great relationship with Formula One. And so I thought, why don't we tell a few tales, as we've got Vegas's Formula One coming up next week. Why don't we tell some stories of Formula One fundraising? You guys ready for that?
Yeah.
All right, that was pretty lukewarm. Are you guys ready for that?
Yeah!
Much better. Okay, glad to see that. Okay, so I got a little story to tell you. This starts with this fellow here. This is my brother. This is Wes Walker, and he is the reason why I know anything about Formula One and have a relationship with Formula One. This is his obsession. So here on the left, this is at the Ferrari Museum in Italy. I think it's in Modena, if I'm not mistaken, if I can't remember correctly. And this is here at his house. This is a one-of-a-kind with a Tesla-powered motor scooter from one of the companies that as a VC I got an opportunity to fund and back and support. And so I had a really awesome experience putting this together for my brother. We actually took it to a charity event right before a golf event, and everybody was trying to buy it here in Vegas. I was like, it's not for sale. We had somebody offer us like $30,000 for it or something. These are custom scooters that go quite fast. They're a lot of fun. Wes and his passion for driving, his passion for racing, you guys know I'm into mountain biking, has been really infectious in our family. I pretty much have no choice but to be a Ferrari fan, but I'm here for it. I love it, as you guys can see. All right, so I know many of you guys are probably thinking, what does Formula One, what does race car driving have anything to do with being a startup founder or building innovation? Well, let me tell you. Let's go through this real quickly. Okay, so we have the founders. We know what those are, and we know that essentially the driver is one of the people that you could say theoretically is building a startup. Next, we have the venture. This is the vehicle that the founder decides to actually build. This is the vehicle, the car, the race car, the rocket ship that the founder decides to get inside of. I'm going to consider this the chassis, right? This is the car, if you're a racer. Okay, we've got the team. Absolutely critical when you're building a startup to have a team. And over here, we'll call it the constructor. In Formula One, there's 2 championships. There's the driver, and then there's the car company, the team, that has a particular brand of car, and they get to win a championship. So they call those the constructors, okay? Cool. All right, the market. You guys know we talk about this all the time. Founders don't understand why they're not funded. It's almost always, and I mean always, siempre, just to be extra, about it when it comes to some Spanish, is because founders don't build what the market wants to buy. So I want you guys as much as possible to be seeing all the connections of how important the market is in a startup founder's success, and how important the market is in a race car driver's success. And you'll see what I mean by market. So the market here is a given race which happens at a physical location, right, in different parts of the world. Okay, moving on quickly to some heavy stats. I'm not sure if you guys know how much technology that you consider to be the latest and greatest, almost startup level technology that is built into these cars. We're gonna go through it. Horsepower. These cars have 850 horsepower, up to 1,000 horsepower. Now there's vehicles that have more, but remember, everything when you're building an F1 car is about weight ratio to power. So the amount of weight they have, and I thought it'd be fun up here, 850 ponies, 850 horsepower, right? Maybe it doesn't sound like a lot when you've seen some of these really big cars, but when you look at the weight, these cars weigh less than a third of the car you're driving around day to day. with that kind of horsepower. Basically, it's a rocket on wheels. Okay, 0 to 60 in 1.6 seconds.
Wow.
Imagine that. It's crazy, right? 2.6 seconds, you're at 100 miles an hour. And in 4 seconds, you're at 100 miles an hour to 0. And that's important as you guys start looking through what we talk about here today, because that's something they're constantly doing. They're speeding up, they're going down. They're speeding up, and the toll that takes on the driver. Okay, top speed in a race, 231 miles an hour. That's crazy. How do you guys feel when you're driving 120, right? Like the wheels are going to come off, right? 231 miles an hour, and they're very frequently, races are not won in the straightaways, unless we're talking about NASCAR, right? Races are won in the corners. You guys know this. The best drivers are the best that can corner. Same thing in mountain biking, right? The guys that are really fast can handle corners at speed. On average, a very slow corner is being taken at 75 miles an hour. And on average, they're at 135 miles an hour in the corners, and they are very frequently, I forget what the 85 is. I can't remember. There's so much data here. Tires. Let's talk about tires for a minute, okay? So Formula One is one of those sports where the cars are so fast, they find ways to slow them down to make the sport more competitive, because there's certain companies like Ferrari that would spend every dime they have. One of the things that's interesting, most of these car companies, these constructors, they were car companies first and race teams second, not Ferrari. Enzo Ferrari was a startup founder himself, and his only thing he cared about was racing. So he had to start selling cars in order to pay for that habit. And this is the reason why Ferrari would easily spend more than $500 million a year on the team if they were allowed to. They've got limits and caps on what they can spend. Back to the tires. There's 20 sets of tires every team gets at every race. On average, that's $2,400 per set of tires. And in a given weekend, they're spending $36,000 on tires just for one team. And I forget what the 2 seconds is. The 2 seconds is, yes. This is one of my brother's favorite things. Is, guys, it used to take a full minute for them to pull the tires off. But if any of you guys have watched the race, right, the pit stop, they pull the tires off and it's back, and they're back on the track in 2 seconds. So pretty wild situation there. How fast they're moving. Downforce. So you guys have seen what wings do on airplanes. They lift you up. The downforce on these foils that are on these wings that are on these cars push them down. And by the way, theoretically speaking, because of the downforce these cars create, the wings, they could drive the car upside down and it would stay sucked up onto the road. Now the engine's not configured for that, right? But at 120 miles an hour, the car could stay upside down, inverted, because of the amount of downforce that the car produces. Crazy to think about the technology, right? So downforce is 1,759 pounds times 3 to 4 times. What does that mean? That means a fully loaded car with a driver in it, sopping wet, weighs 1,759 pounds. And then the downforce that the wings can produce is 3 to 4 times that, which is pretty wild to think about, especially when you start seeing some of the drivers and they had none of the wings that we're talking about that these drivers have today. Temperature. Did you guys know this? I mountain bike in 115 to 120 degree weather. It's rough. These drivers for over an hour and a half are sitting in a cockpit that, because the engine is so close, it's 122, or if you're in Spa, or if you're in Vegas, if it was during the day, or if you were in Abu Dhabi or Qatar, it's 140 degrees inside the car. Yeah, they're losing 9 pounds on average in these races of sweat. They might also, or may not actually pee in their race suits too, but that's a different conversation. 140 degrees, isn't that insane to think about that? The heat, and guys, what else produces the heat? The brakes. The brakes are also very close, and they generate so much heat, they are definitely responsible for some of this heat. Let's talk about G-forces. How many of you guys have ever experienced two Gs and know what that feels like? Okay, great. How many of you guys know what 3 Gs feels like? How many of you guys know what 4 Gs feels like? How many of you guys know what 5 Gs feels like? How many of you guys know what 6 Gs actually feels like? I do. Okay, let's walk through this real quick. So starting, stopping. When they're accelerating, so the fastest car you've ever been in, that's 2 Gs. When it throws you back in the seat, like a really fast car. When they're braking, it's 5 Gs. And when they're hitting some of the corners at speed, it's 6.5 Gs. Let me explain to you what happens to you when you have 6 Gs on you, or 6.5 Gs. 7 Gs is when you start to pass out. This is why in the jet fighter planes they have the suits to keep the blood from rushing to your head, right? When you hit 6 Gs on the ground, it's a feeling of you can't move your arms, you can't move your neck, you can't move your body. And you should understand what's happening here is that 2 Gs feels like twice your body weight being pressed on you. Let that sink in for a minute. These guys are total freaking athletes. They have all this pressure. They have all this energy, this momentum being pressed on them. Tell me you don't feel some of that pressure as a startup founder. Does that feel right? Yep, pretty crazy. And they endure this whole race. 50 Gs. This is the amount of G force that the cars must be able to stress test pass in a crash. 50 Gs. Now, I used to be a bobsledder. This is the reason I know what 6 Gs feels like. I felt being pressed into the bottom of the sled as it's hitting 95 miles an hour in a corner. It's incredible. It's an amazing feeling. You're not ready for it, it will just slam you back. And when I say slam you, it'll throw you and it will hold you there. You know? All right, gas. 30 gallons of gas is what the tank will hold. That's what they have at any given time. It's $300 per liter, which means they're spending $100,000 during the race on just one car. Okay, let's keep this going. Let's talk about capital. Let's talk about capital. Driver. A rookie driver will be hired on in a contract for $1.5 million on the low end. And some of the bigger names that you guys may be aware of, they might get $50 million on a signing. Okay? All right. F1 car. How much does an F1 car cost that they break and act like it's just a little toy? $20 million. And they usually come with a couple of them to a race, right? Shipping. The shipping and the logistics for running a team on an annual basis is $14 million. It could be upwards of $14 million a year. And that means they're taking the F1 car and they're loading it onto a plane, right? Moving these cars around. And by the way, guys, these cars keep getting bigger and bigger. They're getting longer and they're getting wider. And we'll talk about that in a bit when it comes to the racetracks, because the tracks don't change. Cars are getting bigger and faster, but the tracks don't change. Okay, since we're talking about capital stack all the time when we're fundraising, this is what it takes to build a new team. If you can even get a license, if you can even get the opportunity, think of it as you're building a new NFL football team, right? If you can even get a permit, a license for a new team, but in F1, there's not that many teams. To launch, you need about $500 million. That's the start. There's a $200 million entry fee. Good to have you here. Oh, $200 million. Oh, you shouldn't have, right? And then annually, your expenses are $215 million a year on top of that. And this is the reason, guys, why Mainsail does family office events at F1, because at any given time, in any city in the world, this is the largest concentration of wealth anywhere in the world, is at an F1 race. Salaries. We all know that building a startup, your biggest expense is going to be your human capital, right? AI is changing some of the things, but human capital is very expensive. Software dev, very expensive. $135 million a year on salaries. You got to have the best of the best of the best that are training your drivers, doing the mechanical work, designing new technology. Every year F1's changing regulations, trying to keep it interesting, trying to keep it competitive, right? And so these guys, they've actually slowed the cars down. The cars were faster 10 years ago. The cars were faster even 2 years ago. On average, because of the regulations rolling into 2026, the laps will be 1.2 to 1.3 seconds slower than they were in the past. Crazy. Okay. Let's talk about markets. Let's talk about some iconic tracks, according to Kurt. Okay, Monza. This is a special one for me. I've got my Monza hat here from being in Monza with my family. Why is this an important track? Built in 1922. Crazy when you think about it. This is the Temple of Speed. This is the fastest track on the planet. And don't look at this oval piece, just look at this L. It's got the longest straightaways, and so it is one of those where they're hitting just top speed. And the reason why it can be brutal is because you're braking really late. And that's where you get those heavy G-forces that we talked about earlier, right? 225 miles an hour. In some of these tracks, you don't get to go that fast because there just isn't enough straightaway for the cars to, Indy cars are faster in a straightaway over a long oval, but over corners, an F1 car will absolutely smash an Indy car. They are so much faster because, as we say, you win the race in the corners, right? So this is called the Temple of Speed. You got to brake late, and you're heavy braking, but you're not heavy braking from like a mid-speed on another track. You're heavy braking from top speed. It's pretty crazy. All right. This is the Walker family, y'all. Right here. On the left, we have part of the Walker clan over here at the Ferrari, museum over here. This was last summer. And then this is part of my family here. This is Wes' family, Wes and Jessica's family. And this is at the Temple of Speed in Monza. And real quick, we've got a little cameo from Miss Minty Fresh. She's also known as Talia. You're going to come up real quick, grab this other microphone. And you're going to tell us a little bit about your family and your experience with F1. Like me, you were co-opted into this love of Ferrari and Formula One. So what do you have to share about this? Your dad, Formula One, Ferrari. What do you got? You had a story about stickers.
Oh, my dad.
Both of them. Hold both of them.
Both of them?
Yes.
My dad always, so I'm about to get a car soon, and I was talking about getting decals, like flames or something, as a joke, and my dad got super upset, and he's like, you shouldn't put decals on a nice car. And then on his Ferrari, he has a bunch of decals of pirate stickers.
Okay, and then you had a story to tell me about Leclerc?
Oh, I think it's hilarious when Leclerc goes through a patch with his team, as they were guiding him, and he always says smooth operator. I know he's not allowed to anymore, but I just think it's funny.
Yeah. So basically, when Leclerc's management team is talking to him over the radio and they say smooth, smooth, he starts singing Smooth Operator by Sade, right, which is funny. And then they dock him. They fine him every time he does it. But he's like, I don't give a crap. He does it anyway, right? And then can you tell us a little bit about how you got your name?
Oh, my dad has a crazy obsession with Ferrari to the point where all of his kids are named after Ferrari themed.
Yeah.
Including the dog.
Yes, the dog's name is Monza Schumacher Walker. So yes, thank you so much, Talia. Good to have you here. All right. So this is my awesome family. They are obsessed with this sport, and I didn't know very much about it, but as you know, I've learned a few things, right? Okay, let's talk about the monster. The scariest track in the world, the biggest track in the world, probably the hardest track in the world. You could maybe argue that the Le Mans 24-hour race is as challenging, but this sucker is a monster. They don't drive this anymore. A lot of reasons for it. We'll get into it. This is 3 to 4 times the length of an average F1 track. That's part of the reason they don't do it. It's too much driving. Fans don't get to see the cars quick enough. But it's just a monster. It's very, very dangerous. As you can see, look at all these tight corners. When we talk about danger, it only has become a thing in the last 20-something years that F1 racing is actually even relatively safe. I say relatively safe. Back in the 50s, which we're going to talk about, drivers would die constantly, all the time. It was very much kind of a thing, unfortunately. But Nürburgring, especially this portion of the track, on average, 3 to 12 deaths a year on this track. Now, why? Because it's got elevation changes. When you guys think of F1 tracks, you probably think of them as flat, and a lot of them are. But Nürburgring and one of the other tracks we're going to talk about goes like this. So you're going at this speed. How many of you guys have seen Ferris Bueller where the car goes sailing over the... Yeah, That's what happens when these cars are going at the speed and they're hitting these elevation changes. The other thing is this track is not smooth. It's rough. It really beats up the cars, and you guys know the F1 cars are sucked to the road, and they're very close to the road. You see sparks flying off them when they drive around, right? Here's the other thing that's crazy about this track, guys. Very few drivers are good in the rain. How many of you guys know who the best driver in the rain is? I will get to him. Awesome. She knows the answer. No cheating. This track is so hard that on average it takes you 500 laps to master it in the dry. 1,000 if you're running in the rain. So that's Nürburgring. All right. This is my brother's favorite. This is Monaco. This is probably the most iconic of all the tracks. What would happen if they were to go drop an F1 race in the middle of a city? Where you're like, well, I'm in Vegas. I know what that's like. Vegas is pretty benign as far as how challenging it is relative to this, because Vegas has very wide streets, right? Monaco, it's in the middle of a European city, as you guys know. It has elevation, and it is super tight. It's tight streets. So this is the slowest track. Monza, Temple of Speed, is the fastest track. This is the slowest. Why? Because you can't get speed. There's too many tight corners, and you're close to a wall almost the whole time. If you guys watch, the cars are like a centimeter away from the wall most of the time. There's very little opportunity to pass. Now think about this. You're a startup founder, and you're blocked at every way. That means your start has to be amazing. Your go-to market is completely different when you're racing at Monaco versus when you're racing at Monza. And I don't think that founders think about go-to market enough. You guys hear me constantly talk about how if you're not building something the market wants to buy, you're not going to be successful. And so your strategy has to change based on where the market is and the time in the market. Time could be, hey, it's raining, right? We talk a lot about we don't bet on the horse, we bet on the jockey. I think that's incorrect. Let's expand that a little bit. I like to say that you don't just bet on the jockey, you bet on the horse and you bet on the race. And I've said this for years, and the race in this case, if we're talking startup founders, is the market. Like, what is the market that you're in? What's the economy doing at that time? What's hot, what's not? Where's the tidal wave of momentum, right? Okay, so this is tight city walls. There's very limited passing, as we've talked about, and the cars have gotten longer and wider, which means there's less opportunity for people to scoot around each other. This track probably has some of the tiniest margin of error of any of the tracks. This was built in 1929. You guys will see how old these tracks are. Okay, Suzuka. This is one of the drivers' favorite. This is probably my favorite from like a technicality standpoint. This was built in '67. It's in Japan. This is a high commitment track. Okay, why? Because it's got very technical corners. You can see it's one of the only tracks that crosses over itself. You guys can see that here, right here with the X on the left, right? And there's elevation, as we talked about before. And it has substantial elevation, not just a little bit. And not just up, but also down, which can be very, very interesting. And I can tell you that because of the technicality of this track, the tire and the brake burn is substantial. Okay, back to startup founders. What's your burn? Your burn is your cash position that you have. Your braking is when do you know when to slow down and speed up? What's the cadence of when you're building your venture? And what is your capital cadence as you're raising? You know, we talk about capital stack, capital sequence. These are things that you have to be very mindful of, because as a CEO and a founder in a startup, you have to be very aware of what's going on in your market and how to adjust things, right? So it's a dance. There's an art to it. There's a feel to it. Okay, let's talk about some of the iconic drivers. We've talked about you bet on the jockey, not on the horse. Let's talk about some of the best jockeys that have ever played this game, just like building a startup is a game. Mr. Fangio, Juan Manuel from Argentina. He raced from 50 to 58, and he was 5 times world champion. Now, here's the reason why some people consider him the best. He was a 5-time champion across 4 constructors. And as we talked about, that means 4 different teams with different cars. That's difficult to do. When you guys understand all of the politics and how cars are constantly being neutered by Formula One to make them slower, and so they're always pushing what's possible with the cars. A car can be amazing one year and the next year not be great. You guys see this with other sports sometimes, but it's heavily affecting the way the cars are. He raced in the 1950s. Why is that unique? Because 1 out of 3 drivers, when they got into that car, they knew they may not come out alive, and that was the stats. 33% of drivers during the 1950s and 60s died. Crazy when you think about it. And look at this car, guys. Open wheel, no wing, no downforce, no braking that was anywhere near us. The brakes on these cars are unbelievable. The heat dissipation, it's a startup in and of itself. You take one part on an F1 car and it could have been a startup. Whether it's the wing technology or whether it's the braking, the engines, the steering wheel is $100,000 in these cars. It's got 20 buttons on it. There's all sorts of different things it can do. Why was he so good? Because he learned to drive down in South America on dirt roads. So that meant he was used to uneven surfaces, which were way more common back then. The other reason why he was so freaking good is because he was a 4-wheel drift master. Why? Because he learned to race on dirt roads. So he had that skill set. So you have to ask yourself as a founder, where do I get to lean in based on skill sets I have? I think investors need to think about this too. I always think about, where do I have an unfair, asymmetric advantage when it comes to investing, right? And that's what we're building for Mainsail for family offices. We're helping family offices so that we're the North Star when they want to understand, how should I be thinking about AI? How should I be thinking about, investing in these different things? And if I want to do purpose and legacy investing, who should I be aligning myself with? And what are the best deals? Who are the leaders in information when it comes to that? All right. He was known to be very aggressive, but one of the things he said that I really loved is he said the secret to winning is to go as slowly as possible. So to win as slow as possible. And the reason he said that is because people were dying left and right. So even though he was very aggressive, he knew when to kind of hang back and be a little more chill. So that's, I think, important. And founders have to deal with this. Tommy Byrne. If you guys are race driver fanatics, you may not hear this name, especially mentioned among the greats. Why? Well, Tommy only raced in Formula One 1 year, 1982. He's from Ireland. And I want to bring up Tommy because of a couple of reasons. Word on the street is that he could be as fast as Senna. He could be as fast as Senna, which is crazy. You guys will hear more about him in a minute. The challenge is, and when he went out and he did a race, a test at Silverstone, which is in the UK, he actually set, as a test, he set the record for the entire track. That's how fast this guy could be. The reason I'm bringing him up, guys, is that startup founders are not all good. Sometimes they're bad. Sometimes they get in their own freaking way. Tommy got in his own freaking way. Being a great startup founder isn't if you're the smartest or most brilliant. You don't operate in a vacuum. You have to deal with relationships, timing in the market, what you're building, interpersonal relationships, how to win friends and funders, those kinds of things. And Tommy constantly was partying. It was amazing that he could be drunk the night before and get in the car and do what he could do, but it cut out his edge. He was partying too much, and he had crazy personal issues that were getting in his way when it came to racing. He never had the financial backing that he needed to be successful, and there's a reason why. People thought he was a pain in the ass, unfortunately. He had constant clashes with the owners of teams that made him unpalatable to be backing. You guys remember, when a team backs a driver, they're putting a humongous amount of capital behind that driver. How difficult are you with your investors? Do you act like your crap don't stink? Or do you understand that it's a marriage? You understand that there's a relationship there where the right investor with the right channel partnerships relationships, the right value add, they're so much more than their capital. He had a bad attitude, and he had a bad attitude long enough, it became bad luck. But Tommy Byrne had the potential. He raced at the same time during Senna. He could have really been something special. All right, probably the darling of the racing world, this guy had something special in him. This is a great counterexample of bad attitude and an amazing attitude. And this is the reason why Senna, no matter whether you think he's the greatest of all time or not, will go down as one of the greatest, not just because of what he produced on the racetrack, but what he also did off the racetrack. You guys know that my obsession is helping founders become funders. Everything we do, whether it's Mainsail on the family office side, or whether it's the accelerators, the venture studio, the UAE trips, working with the Dubai for the Dubai Tech Experience and all those things, it all comes back to one thing, creating founders that become funders. And Senna was a unique guy. Okay, let's talk about him. Obviously, Ayrton was from Brazil. He raced from 1984 to 94. He was third-time world champion, and there are many that believe that had he not been killed in the race in 94, that he would probably have gone on to win at least 2 more times, which I think is probably accurate. Why was he so great? He had exceptional raw speed, exceptional. This guy would go out and qualify. This is before the actual race, for those of you guys that know. He'd go out and he would just trounce everybody else in his qualifying setup, and it would mess with their heads, right? So he had that talent. He would out-qualify everybody else. Okay, let's talk about this as if you're a startup founder. Are you really fast out of the blocks? Are you somebody that when you show up, even if you're not fast out of the blocks, your results, your savviness, your execution, everything's a test when you're a founder. Everything. Especially when you're in front of funders. We're watching. How does this founder handle this? How do they handle adversity? Guys, I brought a bunch of American founders at the request of the UAE government to represent the entire United States at the largest technology conference in the world in Dubai. I just got back. No pressure on us. We ran the entire United States pavilion. I got to watch how founders handled for 2 weeks of events and investor meetings and everything. We had the second largest bank on earth sitting down with these founders. I'm negotiating lines of credit. I got to see how these founders operated under pressure. And this was a guy that knew how to operate under pressure. How did he do that? He did it because he was intensely dedicated. Early on, he was one of those few that was actually really, really, really intense with his mental side of things and his focus, and with the physicality of how he trained himself. A lot of drivers were not training themselves hitting weights and stuff at the time he was doing that. One of the things that's true about Senna is he's one of the best that ever raced when it came to the wet. Can you guys imagine driving cars at 200 miles an hour on a corner in the wet when you can't even see? He was amazing in the wet. He was so good when it was raining. Another thing, he had legendary car control. He knew how to just keep the car at the very, very edge. And guys, there was no traction control back then. There was a lot of things that did not exist that we have today. The downforce wasn't the same, the brakes weren't the same. And my guess is he could probably do pretty well against some of the best today. We will never know, unfortunately. He's also known he was a humanitarian. He was a philanthropist. He took huge quantities of his money and he donated it. So he was a founder funder, as we talked about. And then the thing that got him the most love is that he was very passionate and very charismatic personality. Even though he was willing to go toe-to-toe and take huge risks, he also cared about the other driver's well-being. He was willing to argue when he thought that the track conditions were unsafe. Because back when he was racing in the 90s, it was still an unsafe time. When he died, that's when things started to shift and change a little bit. Okay, Mr. Schumacher. You guys know him? All right. Mr. Michael, German, 91 to 2012. There was some gaps where he didn't race. He won 7 times world champion, and probably one of the most competitive to ever race in the sport. He's known for his exceptional talent. He's known for his supreme fitness. He was like Ayrton Senna. His driver preparation. How many founders take the time to learn fundraising fluency before they go raise? Very few. I have very few founders that come to me and say, I don't know a thing about fundraising, teach me. Instead, many founders say, I don't know you, I just met you. Will you invest in me? Will you bring me investor leads? It's ridiculous. Founders, guys, I used to think that a fundraising platform could help you to fundraise if you don't know anything. I don't think that anymore. I realize that just like sales and recruiting are skill sets, building a team, skill set, fundraising is a skill set. Are you going to learn it? Are you going to learn how this game of capital is rigged? You can rig it in your favor. It's a choice. It's not an easy thing to learn because there's very few places to learn about it. But this has been something we've been very dedicated to. So if I'm you, I'd be like looking at everything I write on LinkedIn because I live, sleep, and breathe fundraising. You will not find anyone that is more obsessed about it than we are. We understand capital flows. We tracked 850 new funds across the market with fresh capital ready to deploy. We make that available to founders. Why? Because we want them to stop thinking about capital and do the work of making sure you're working on the right problem and that you're building something the market actually wants to buy. Super important. Okay, he was relentless in his determination. And guys, want to know why I think Schumacher deserves to be potentially the best driver of all time? 1 or 2 best. It's not what he did on the track, it's what he did off the track that blew my mind. And this is, I think, again, who are the enrolling founders that when you meet them, you just say, I don't know what they're doing, but I have to be a part of it. I have to back them. I have to support them. I have to bring them relationships. I have to help them in some way because they're going to make it. What they're doing matters. The problem they've chosen really is important, and I will do what I have to support them. Guys, he came to Ferrari when Ferrari sucked. They were really bad. Now, the average driver will blame the car, always blame the car. And I know it's frustrating because there's many drivers that had a bad year because the car sucked. And the car makes a huge advantage. Guys, these races are won at like 1/10, 100th of a second. The car does matter greatly. If there's a tech, like lead, right? And so F1's always trying to make sure that lead is not too large so that it's actually competitive. So what did he do? He went in and made Ferrari the best team on the track, which meant making sure the cars were incredible. So he took his go-karting background and used that from an engineering standpoint. So why do I think he's one of the best? Because of his team leadership, his technical car and race development capabilities. Think of it, guys. How many basketball players, football players, like let's take a Barry Sanders. Didn't Barry Sanders basically carry the Lions forever? Like he's one of the greatest to ever play. He didn't complain and he went out his own way. He decided, I'm done. He could have gone on to do other things. Think about somebody that is so good, when they show up, they make everybody else better around them. Schumacher did that. Now, he was super aggressive too. I would argue that some of these drivers had other foes that like there was their nemesis and it made them go to new heights, right? So that's Schumacher. All right, Alonso. Oh, good old Fernando. Okay. This is a Spaniard. He's still racing today. He's the oldest guy on the track. Lewis Hamilton's just a little bit younger than him. He raced from 2001 to now. His focus is different than a lot of other drivers. His goal is to be the most complete driver on the track. He wants to be good at everything. He's won 2 times as world champion. Potentially possible to have come close 1 or 2 other times. And he is considered by most to be one of the most complete drivers. And everybody agrees he has no natural weaknesses. Think of that as a founder. I'm not saying don't spend time on weaknesses at all. It's probably best to just really lean on the things that you're incredible at. But like if your weakness is fundraising, that is something you should probably address. You're not going to be successful without that. Your job as a CEO is 2 things. Never run out of money. And second, build the most incredible team you can possibly build at your venture. The second's more important than the first, but both of them are absolutely critical. No major weaknesses. He pushes the cars to absolute limit. You want to know what I love about Fernando as well? Fernando doesn't complain about cars. He is probably one of the most adaptable drivers. He actually likes understeer in a car. Things that other drivers complain about. He always figures out a way to get it done, and he's one of the more flexible, adaptable drivers. Why do you, guys, we talk about like Avengers and superpowers. What's the superpower I would choose to have that's a real one you can actually have? Adaptability. You can't kill an adaptable founder. You just can't. They're going to come back. They're going to find a way. They're going to figure it out, right? And he's that type of guy out on the track. How many of you guys have seen the Formula One movie? Awesome. Okay, I don't want to ruin it for you guys. Obviously, it's Hollywood. But if there was one driver that I think that the driver in the movie is like, as far as some of the shenanigans that he pulls, it's Fernando. Now, I think there's some inaccuracies in the way they do the movie. The drivers are not dumb. They know what other drivers are likely to be able to do and what the tricks are, right? So somebody doing that in one season from the movie where they're using all these tricks, not super likely. I get that. We'll get to that in a minute. He is known to extract the absolute maximum out of whatever car he's handed and he's given. And I think that sounds like a startup founder to me. How many founders got it done even though they had less than favorable conditions in the car, which is their startup, maybe their team management, or maybe it was their racetrack conditions that day, right? Pretty incredible. Longevity. This guy's been racing forever. People don't competitively race at 40, 41, 42, guys. Especially now that you've got it clear how heavy the G-forces are on the body, the sweating, the heat, everything, right? These guys are athletes. This is full contact driving. This isn't like what you think sometimes. So I think it's pretty incredible when you think about who are people that burn out as startup founders. They're bright and they burn out. who has staying power, who has endurance, who can stay alive. And I think that's something that Fernando has demonstrated. He's excellent at tire management. He's among the best. He knows. Guys, tires are a huge factor. Fueling up, breaking your car, tires, you have to pit stop for this stuff. Now, Formula One makes it that way. They make the tires last less long than they could on purpose. But it's always decisions you're making. It's strategy that you have to make on the fly. And he's one of the best. My favorite thing about Fernando is he just freaking messes with the other drivers. I think it's so much fun to watch. He's very clever. He knows when to do certain things that have to be extremely frustrating for the other drivers on the track. And I think because he's adaptable, he's able to do that. He's a very smart and clever driver, and this is something that I don't see a lot of the other drivers do. And that's what really blows my mind about how complete he is. And he just is out there to have a good time. He's out there having fun, and he's pulling little shenanigans. You could say he's probably like the mischievous one out on the track, right? Oh, it's going to do this. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were there. You know, those kinds of things. All right. Drivers. Let's hear from some of the drivers, some of the things that they've said. And tell me this doesn't feel like something a startup founder might say. Oh, Mr. Kimi Räikkönen, just leave me alone. I know what to do. How many times have I heard that from portfolio companies and founders? Mr. Enzo Ferrari, you probably don't think of him as a startup founder, but he is 100% startup founder. Not always the nicest guy, for sure. Aerodynamics are for people that can't afford to build engines. Probably not so true today, but back in his time, more muscle, more engine, more horsepower was the answer, right? Okay, Mr. Sterling Moss, who hasn't been in the game for a while. To achieve anything in this game, you must be prepared to dabble in the absolute boundary of disaster. Does that sound like building a startup? I think so, yes, pretty apropos. Mr. Ayrton Senna, if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you are no longer a racing driver. How many founders have that level of intensity in the way that they show up when they're building? You guys are telling me you're ready to commit to something for 10 years and you're not going to hit it with this level of intensity and understand that you also have to be consistent? Is this a casual thing, or are you building a startup? Do you intend to exit? Do you intend to become a founder funder? It shows in the way you do things. And if you're not willing to learn how to fundraise, actually learn it. Not to say, hey, throw money at me. Because money's never the problem. There is unlimited amounts of capital out there. For all intents and purposes, there's more money than you could ever spend, and it's right there. People are getting funded every single day. Will it be you? Maybe you're the kind of founder that understands, I don't actually need to raise capital right now. That's also an option. It's called bootstrapping. You should try it. Most businesses do it. 98% of all businesses never raise a dime. So totally agree with him there in the intensity of how you can approach things. Okay, Mr. Daniel Ricciardo. I love this one. This is one of the best. Sometimes you just have to lick the stamp and freaking send it. So you guys know the term ship? You got to ship frequently, ship often. You're building startup code. You need to making sure that the first version of the product that you put out in the market is so bad, so embarrassing that when you look back, you're like, I can't believe that's where we started. It means you're moving fast, you're iterating. You think these guys got to be this fast on the track without thousands and thousands and thousands of races and experience being out there putting it on the line? Startup founders don't have enough reps. It's crazy. They're like, nobody will fund me. I'm like, how many funders you talk to? 10? I'm like, okay, come back when you've talked to 200 of the right funder and you've got 6 or 7 that decide to back you. Volume. These guys do volume. I also love that attitude of you just got to send it. Now, I think there's a difference between being reckless and getting yourself killed and putting your startup and your venture and your family in danger and being intentional and intense at the same time. Those things can't exist together. You know what I'm saying? Right? Okay, awesome. Okay, Formula One. Let's talk about some numbers real quick. Did you guys know that teams matter? So we have this concept called capital macros. As a VC, I started to see when things break, it tends to be in the sales process, in the fundraising process, and in the team and talent and human capital process. So I started calling them capital macros. That means there's client and sales capital, there's dollar capital, and there's team and human and talent capital, right? So coming to this last one, I think championships are won by teams, as we know, right? Especially here. Formula driver needs a car. He doesn't have a car without a mechanic. He doesn't have a team without a backer. That's his investor, right? So, Teams matter about 6 times more than drivers when it comes to success in F1. Most people don't factor in what's happening with the car, or the team, or the politics, or whatever's happening. This has absolutely helped drivers win and helped drivers lose for the last 100 years. So if founders think they're going to white knuckle it and do it by themselves and have a crappy attitude where they turn people away because they think that they know everything, think again. I've been doing capital for 20 years. I still study it every single day. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. And it's the reason why I can now walk into rooms and there's almost never a time where I'm not educating them, even though I'm still always learning, right? Okay, 20. That's the amount of spots there are in a given race year in a Formula One. 20 drivers, 20. Think about that. And it's not like most of the drivers turn over every year, so that means what is there, 5, 6 spots maybe? So what are you going to do as a founder to make sure that you're one of those that gets that opportunity? Of those that try to race in Formula One, less than 1% ever get a chance. And this is probably about how accurate it is for you to fundraise. Hate to break it to you. We talk about it like it happens every day, because in my world, it does. Founders get funded every single day. In my world, exits happen every day. In my world, where my proximity and the relationships I have worked to build, where I don't ask for things, I give, it's not a 1%. It's much higher than that. But in the average world, for the average person, 1% of you guys are going to get funded and backed. Now, being backed, if it's with the right investor and team, is everything. Being backed by the wrong investor is nothing. Got to understand that. We got to kind of qualify that a little bit, right? Okay. The tale of two cars. Which one of these describes you as a founder, describes your venture? What do you think? See, I think that most founders are on the left. This picture is so old it's in black and white. This is what they think they're driving, is this very nice Formula One car, but they're actually driving this other thing. They don't realize how dangerous what they're doing is. They're not mitigating risks. They're not thinking about it. And actually, now that we're in the world of AI, this is your venture without AI. This is your venture with AI. Choose accordingly, right? AI can make that big of a difference. It's not a cure-all, though. If you're a crappy marketer, it's not going to make you better. If you're horrible at people skills, not going to make you better. If you have zero understanding of where the capital is hiding out and how to access it and how to interface with it, it's not going to help you. AI does not understand fundraising. It doesn't get it yet. Why? Because fundraising is abstract. There's no book you can go read on it that's going to help you to understand it better. The only thing that will is studying history and understanding how do companies get backed and funded. Right? So AI is not there yet. It will get there because AI will get everywhere because it's almost already everywhere now. What we're seeing now is the remedial first crappy version of a product that was shipped. That's what we're seeing right now. Where it's going to go, if you guys are not getting fluent where you're thinking in AI, you're not doing it right. This is the reason why Mainsail is that northstar and that trusted source where family offices can come and say, I want to better understand this. I'm busy building the rest of my empire, or taking care of my family, or attending to my philanthropy projects. I can't keep up with the speed of AI and blockchain and everything that's happening, right? So that's the reason why we're building content for those individuals and we put together events that are curated for them. But I also think this comes down to personalities too. You're going to dictate how many people are willing to come with you. Guys, when these guys drove back then, there wasn't much of a team around them. It was very casual. Whereas, how many of you guys think this driver's ready to go to war? I do. How many startup founders are actually like this? Okay. This is awesome. I love this. Okay, when I take go-karts out with my friends, it's a disaster normally. But in the race car, I'm calm because, they pay me to do this and I have to be a professional. This is Fernando Alonso that said this. I think this is really cool. It shows the playfulness. It shows the level of competitiveness that somebody like that. Fernando's the kind of guy, if you go to the grocery store and he's with a friend, he wants to be in the door first. Right? He's that kind of a person. Okay, tell me how this one hits you guys right here. There's nothing wrong with the car except it's on fire. No big deal, right? This is Murray Walker, one of the legendary sports commentators in F1. Why do I like this so much? Because any of you guys that have a startup, whether you're on the investor side or on the founder side, your car will be on fire. Guaranteed. It's going to happen. You're going to drive into a short wall, destroy the chassis, you're going to flip the car, whatever. As long as you get up out of the car and walk away, you can get into the car. Or you can build a better version of the car, right? Because that's your venture. That's what a driver does. That's what a founder does. They get it done, and they always figure it out, and they find a way through. This is my family again. My family hates pictures, so I've never actually shown them in a presentation that I've ever done before. But I think this is probably my favorite picture we've ever taken. I'm horrible at selfies, so forgive me for that. This is Fangio's car that he would have driven back at that time. And this is us right outside of Monza, the track. A little bit on the Italians and why Monza is so exciting to go watch, guys. The Italians are insane. They freaking love Ferrari so much. Our guide was like, when you drive for Ferrari, you drive for Italy. When you win for Ferrari, you win for Italy. And just the intensity and the passion, I just made it one of my favorite parts of the entire trip. And this is like a 3-week mega trip to Greece and all these different places, and yet his passion was so much there. And they've got this thing called, I don't know, the Red Storm or the Red something, where you see a sea of Ferrari fans in red in the stands, right, when you're at Monza. So yes, and there you go. You can see Minty Fresh right there. Say hello to Minty Fresh there in the front. And then this is on that same trip with my madre. And she has done an exceptional job. My parents have done an exceptional job of raising our family and making sure that we as startups had the care, love, feeding, support, abundant thinking that we needed to be successful. And I've had every opportunity in life that parents can give, a family can give, to someone to make sure that as a founder, they're birthed out of the nest, and I'm incredibly grateful. This trip was a trip that we talked about doing for many, many years. It's very special, and I was a little surprised that the Ferrari and the F1 portions of the trip are the most memorable, even though I'd been to Venice, I'd been to these other places, right? Now the reason I bring this up, guys, is it success if you don't bring the right people with you? When you choose to build your venture, who are you choosing to put in the seats in the car? How are you treating them? Are you treating them with care, understanding that they're following you into battle, that there's a risk that they're taking, right? Who's your significant other? What is your family? What's the situation there? And to think about that. I can't say that my family always has understood my life choices and the decision, you did what? To blow how much money into what? You know, right? But sure it is fun to be working with the innovators and the pioneers of the future. All right. You guys can connect with me on LinkedIn. We're going to be doing a lot more with Mainsail in the next year. I've kind of been soft pedaling. We've had Mainsail for quite a few years and been doing really great events and been talking to family office for quite some time, and it's time to grow it. I've spent the last 10 years of my life dedicated to founders, 20 years plus in capital, private equity, all that. Now it's time to get back to working with some of my investor partners and seeing how we can help the already founder funders help the next generation of founders to become funders themselves. So welcome to Who's Got My Money, guys. Come grab a group picture, and we'll see you guys soon. And hopefully you guys are excited to do some of your own Formula One fundraising. All right, guys, come down here if you would, and we'll get a group picture.